So I definitely think there's going to be a shift in attitude. I'm not sure if they'll just straight up drop the lawsuits because a lot of SEC resources have already been spent on those lawsuits. And I think that they have to consider like what that would do to the taxpayer dollars that they've already spent. But what we could see happen, and I think is more likely, is favorable settlements.
This episode is brought to you by BitGo, which is a top-tier crypto custodian that has been in the industry since 2013. It's headed up by Mike Belshue, who's a Web 1.0 and 2.0 legend. BitGo provides incredible services in addition to custody. They allow you to manage your tokens, get all types of liquidity, and much more. And some of the companies that use BitGo include Bitstamp Exchange, Suing, the token project, Pantera Capital, that's Dan Moorhead, as well as 21 Shares, which issues Bitcoin and Ethereum ETFs. Some of the great services that BitGo provides includes wallet services, which is secure, trusted, scalable wallet solutions, Prime services, which allows you to get seamless access to liquidity and capital. It also allows you to list, manage, and grow your ecosystem. And they have what's called the Go Network, which is a secure real-time global settlement. Recently, BitGo launched a retail platform that allows you to trade, stake, and of course, custody your crypto assets. And this is a great solution because it provides you with top-tier crypto security, and security is, of course, a big factor in investing in crypto. And BitGo is offering an incredible incentive as they launch this platform where you can get a chance to win Bitcoin. They're giving away at least one Bitcoin every quarter. So if you sign up and have funds on the platform through the last day of each quarter, starting December 31st, 2024, you can be eligible to win some free Bitcoin here. So if you'd like to learn more about BitGo, go to bitgo.com. Link will be in the description. Welcome into the Thinking Crypto podcast. I'm your host, Tony Edward. Happy New Year. And my guest today is Amanda Tuminelli, who's the Chief Legal Officer at the DeFi Education Fund. Amanda, great to have you on.
Thanks for having me. Happy New Year.
Yeah, for sure. Amanda, great to be kicking the year off. You're my first interview for the year.
I feel very special. Thank you.
But it's very timely because the IRS and the Treasury tried to pull a fast one while we were on holiday break. Tell us about the lawsuit you and the folks at the Blockchain Association and the Texas Blockchain Council, if I'm not mistaken, the lawsuit you filed against the Treasury and IRS.
Yeah, we thought we were going to end 2024 without another lawsuit, but the IRS, decided to finalize this rule on December 27th, so in between Christmas and New Year's. And it is essentially a tax reporting rule for DeFi industry participants. And there was another rule that was finalized in June, which the IRS defined to include centralized exchanges and custodial providers. And this is now like the second part of their digital asset rulemaking. And this part applies to DeFi industry participants that the IRS is saying are brokers, when we would say, and what our lawsuit says, should not be considered brokers and are not brokers under the statutory definition. So as you said, we filed with Blockchain Association and Texas Blockchain Council in federal court in Texas. And that what we did it same day that the rule came out, so that we could preserve our objection to this rule.
And this was part two of that rule, right? And they're essentially trying to make DeFi platforms or setups as broker dealers.
So the statutory definition of a broker is somebody who, for consideration for money, effectuates transfers of digital assets on behalf of another person, right? So right there in the definition, you would think on behalf of another person means a service that is actually taking custody of your funds or who's completing a transaction on your behalf. As we know in DeFi, nobody does that, right? It's a user directing their own transaction. And while it actually seems the IRS does understand this, because in the long preamble to the rule itself, they actually go through this and they say that they understand that front ends do not take custody, or front ends to a DEX, I should say, do not take custody and are merely assisting the user in completing a transaction, They say that just because they're assisting the user, that still somehow meets the definition of a broker. And that's just simply not what the statute says, right? That is a huge broadening beyond the statute. And one of the things that we say in our complaint is under the IRS's logic that any service that's effectuating a transaction, again, not the statutory definition, there's no limiting principle to that, right? That could be a web browser, that could be an ISP. So it's just like the IRS has made the decision that there's got to be a broker somewhere in a DeFi transaction. So they're just going to pick the front end because the front end can obtain access to the information. And they actually say this. They say that even if the front end currently does not collect user transaction information, if they can obtain that, so if they can change the code of their website to collect this information, then they are considered a broker. And even if the front end is free, they can still be considered a broker because it's possible for them to do this broker activity according to them for consideration. So it's just hugely broad, right? The TLDR is it's hugely broad. It makes brokers out of thin air. And it's beyond their statutory authority to redefine what a broker is.
And was this a rule that was supposed to be or is going to be implemented in 2025? Is that the timeline, or was it like retroactive or immediately as soon as they issue it?
So it's actually future oriented, which is good. So it's not like imposing a reporting obligation right now. It's for any sale or transaction that occurs on or after January 1st, 2027. So it would have a lot of time before it would actually be implemented and require that reporting. But, with the next administration, we expect to see some pushback or some rollback of this rule. And, we got our lawsuit on file because, like I said, we wanted to preserve our objection to this rule immediately, but we do expect that Congress can use their ability to review the rule under the Congressional Review Act and disapprove of it, which would essentially say that it doesn't have effect even before that deadline.
Yeah, and there's also some other things that are flying about with the IRS, safe harbor and specifically a 1099 DA. But to your point, there's a bit of a time here that we have for Congress to act and put some of these things to bed. And I would love to also get your thoughts on pro-crypto president coming in, Donald Trump, pro-crypto Congress. Do you see this year being very favorable for crypto legislation?
I do. I think that this will be, the first time that the government is majority pro-crypto. And that's not to only say Republicans are the only pro-crypto members of Congress, because there are Democrats that are pro-crypto members of Congress as well. But I think that overall we have seen a shift in that the government is going to take this industry very seriously, right? And to actually hear the concerns of the industry and address those concerns. And of course, that does come from the top. And with Trump appointing a crypto czar and making sure that there's a council on digital assets, right? That signals that the industry is going to be taken seriously and that there's most likely going to be legislation with legs proposed in the next couple quarters, I'd say.
Well, it sounds like you won't have to file as many lawsuits this year, hopefully.
We hope not, although it is fun. But no, we would rather see good, fair rules get passed so that we don't have to just do this piecemeal lawsuit by lawsuit.
Absolutely. Now, the other big factor is Paul Atkins, who's coming in to replace Gary Gensler. And Paul has been critical of Gary Gensler over the years and his approach with regulation by enforcement. In addition, folks are anticipating that regulation by enforcement is going to end at the SEC. Do you anticipate that the SEC under its new chair is going to drop some of the non-fraud cases and some of these frivolous lawsuits are going to stop?
So I definitely think there's going to be a shift in attitude. I'm not sure if they'll just straight up drop the lawsuits because a lot of SEC resources have already been spent on those lawsuits. And I think that they have to consider like what that would do to the taxpayer dollars that they've already spent. But what we could see happen, and I think is more likely, is favorable settlements or what's called a consent decree, which is like both parties negotiate a resolution that makes sense. And a consent decree allows a court to retain jurisdiction, meaning that the court can actually like oversee to make sure that the settlement terms get carried out. So I could see that that could be a tool that the SEC uses to provide a resolution to those cases, even if they don't drop them. I mean, to be clear, I think that they should drop their cases against the centralized exchanges for sure, and a lot of the other kind of registration-based no fraud cases. But I'm not sure that that's like procedurally how it will go, although the net result may be that a settlement gets worked out that like is basically the same thing as the lawsuit getting dropped. But it would be great if a settlement got worked out that required the SEC to do rulemaking, right? Or provided an actual path to registration or made it clear who or what is supposed to register with the SEC. So there is opportunity here for the industry to learn from these cases, even if they don't just get dropped outright.
I don't know if you can answer this because this may get into the whole legislative process, but let's say Congress by the end of Q2, they pass the FIT 21 through the House, Donald Trump signs it into law. Could some of the things within the FIT 21 then make it easy for the SEC to say, yeah, we got to end this lawsuit or drop these cases, but some of it we may have to come to a settlement. Do you think that could happen?
It's certainly possible. I mean, whether it's FIT 21 or another statute, if the statute redefines what a security is in terms of digital assets or says these digital assets are commodities or these digital assets are not investment contracts, however it does that, if that is now the controlling law of the land, it could moot a lot of the issues at issue in these lawsuits. So at that point, probably one of the defendants to an SEC suit would put in a filing in their court case saying, there is this new law that has redefined what a security is that moots the issues here. And a court could then dismiss the case based on that.
Hopefully there's a lot of that this year.
It would be nice. I think we're going to see movement, right? Like, I don't know how quickly anything will actually pass because Congress does things pretty slowly, but I do think we're going to see many legislative proposals related to digital assets.
Yeah, and even just the end of the threat of regulation by enforcement would put a lot of entrepreneurs and innovators' minds at ease. They don't have to keep looking over their shoulders, and this SEC could be much more engaging and working with the industry, like you said, proposing rulemaking and different things. That would be really good.
Exactly. I mean, imagine if you did not have to be afraid that your regulator was about to sue you. So you could actually go in and talk to the regulator. Like they always said, come in and register, come in and talk to us. Imagine if you could actually come in and be like, look, this is our business model. This is what we're doing. Do we have to register and get an honest answer? I mean, it would be a totally different dynamic between the industry and regulators. So hopefully there really is that reset and there actually could be useful guidance provided to the industry.
hmm Now, you guys have some lawsuits against the SEC. I believe one is the Beba, if I'm saying that right, NFT
Yeah.
collection.
Yeah.
Any updates around that?
Yeah, so that one is fully briefed on the motion to dismiss. We're just waiting for a decision. So just as a reminder, that's the free airdrop case. Beba did free airdrops of its tokens, which entitled the holder to an exclusive duffel bag with a discount. And we joined Beba in suing the SEC and asked for a declaration that free airdrops are not securities transactions, and also that the regulation by enforcement regime that the SEC was engaged in violates the APA. So the SEC moved to dismiss. We responded to that, and now we're just waiting for the court decision on the motion to dismiss. And, we have no intention of dropping that case at this moment. Like, I'm a very seeing is believing kind of person. So while I have every hope that the SEC is going to be different, and I am cautiously optimistic that we'll see that change until we actually have something like in black and white that the SEC is treating the industry differently, like we're not going to drop our suit. And we'll wait and see what we hear from a court. If we don't get dismissed, and I don't expect that we will, then we would go to discovery. where we would actually we would ask for internal documents from the SEC about how they've dealt with airdrops and other securities or alleged securities transactions in the industry. So that could be really interesting, and we don't want to miss our opportunity to do that, because if we get documents from the past few years that could be helpful to the industry, in other cases, that could be like a really positive outcome for us too.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe it's like a cruise ship. They can't really steer it the other direction very fast. It might take months. Paul Atkins comes in, whatever, this month. Gary Gensler's out, but it may take 6 months for the whole organization to change a bit or shift direction.
Exactly. So we have that case, and then we filed along with 18 states against the SEC, also targeting regulation by enforcement, and also the way that the SEC has improperly preempted the state's ability to direct law within their jurisdictions related to securities and related to digital assets. So that case, we filed that case last month, and now we are waiting for the SEC's first response to the case, which I'm guessing they may ask for more time because their response is due in a couple of weeks, and I could see them wanting the new administration to actually be in place and be seated before they have to respond to it.
Yeah, I'm actually speaking to Commissioner Hester Peirce sometime this month, so I'll try to see if I can get some details there and what they're gonna do. And I'm hoping for just
He's
a
great
positive
though.
change. Yeah, she's great, and Mark Ueda as well. And hopefully, yeah, there's just some fast changes and well, I guess just the elimination of regulation by enforcement itself is just a big thing for the industry.
Absolutely. I mean, the amount of money that the industry must have spent in legal fees over the past 4 years alone has got to be, right, like hundreds of thousands to millions of, probably millions of dollars. So, definitely millions of dollars. So I think that even just removing that threat would be huge, as you said.
Mm. And I know there's other parts of the government that the anti-crypto army seems to be present, right? We've heard stuff about the FDIC. Some said the Fed. You got the Treasury, of course, which you guys going after. And are you looking at other aspects and other cases or where you may file lawsuits?
I mean, we're always looking for any rule that affects DeFi or any practice that affects DeFi. Like we're not trying to like go out of our way to target agencies if they're not doing something negative when it comes to DeFi. But, we're really concerned about the Department of Justice in particular because, as I'm sure many of your listeners know, the Tornado Cash case is still ongoing and the Samurai Wallet case is ongoing. And the theory at issue in those cases is really broad and problematic for developers in the industry and developers in other industries. Honestly, it just hasn't been brought to other industries yet. But the DOJ's theory is that if I create a neutral software tool and a third party bad actor uses my software tool, I'm somehow responsible for that, right? If a sanctioned entity uses my software, I'm responsible for that. Even if it's an immutable smart contract and I can't do anything anymore to change it, I'm still somehow responsible for preventing what is unpreventable by a third party. So that really has no limiting principle either. And we're very concerned that the DOJ may not reverse course on this theory, even with the new administration. We're hopeful that coming from the top, there will still be a shift. But the DOJ deals in criminal cases, right? And there are no higher stakes than criminal cases. So we're really focused on that. I recently co-authored a paper with Dan Barabander and Jake Chervinsky about this issue. It's something that we're going to be focused on and talking to members of Congress in the next few months as well. And we'll see what happens with that. Hopefully we don't need to sue to create change, but we are, really trying to figure out how to get people to pay attention to this issue because it's really important.
Do you think the solution, and you may have written about this, and might be the DOJ and these government agencies have to get technology, kind of like chain analysis, where they can plug into these different blockchain analytics and view all this information and see that, okay, you have to do the policing here because you can't control these things, these smart contracts and all these things. Is that the solution, you think?
I don't know because I think that there really is a use case for blockchain forensics tools, and I think that they are important. And there's a lot of like we're not anti-law enforcement catching people who are doing crime, right? Like, of
Right.
course, we want law enforcement to have tools to actually prevent and catch people from who are bad actors with bad intent. The problem is that they're using these tools against software developers who have no bad intent, who are
Mm.
not trying to commit crimes, who've never had contact with a criminal, right? And are just like putting out software into the world. And one way they're doing that is with these like money transmitting business laws and saying that the developer is running an unlicensed money transmitting business by releasing software into the world that allows users to do peer-to-peer transactions. So whether the like forensics tools solves that is like kind of like adjacent to it, but I don't know if it solves the issue more as like that is just a tool that exists for law enforcement to use.
Hmm. Yeah, and yeah, it's such a balance that we have to find here. And I'm very curious what the solution is. And maybe it's a bit of the blockchain analytics, but also they have to just go after the bad actors, right? Use the different breadcrumbs and details, location, whatever it may be, and just stop the bad actors, not necessarily the platform, because bad actors use any form or medium or currency or whatever they can to do what they need to.
Right, exactly. Like people will find a way. They'll find a tool that they need to do whatever they're set out to, they've set out to do. And there's, statistically much, much more crime in TradFi. And law enforcement can, go after bad guys after things have happened, or they can, there's like now crypto ISACs, right? There's private partnerships where there's groups of people who have volunteered to help law enforcement when a hack or an exploit's actually happening. Like law enforcement can leverage tools that they have to either prevent or go after crime as it's happening. And rather than just require more reporting, which it seems to be which it seems to have become the default, is like, let's just ask for more reporting, even if it invades users' privacy rights or Fourth Amendment rights. Rather than do that, they can actually just use the tools that they have to go after bad guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And I really find it funny because you look at the banking system, which is incredibly regulated, right? And these institutions have been around for a long time, yet you sometimes have the biggest money laundering and all types of illegal activities happening, and these banks get fined every year, millions of dollars. But it's kind of like, oh, that's business as usual. But they don't use the same approach to crypto. It's like, oh, look at this. We got to stop to shut this down and all that. It's so weird.
Exactly. I mean, like TD Bank was how big of a fine this past year, just a few months ago? Nobody went to jail. Nobody was criminally indicted. And yet in the crypto industry, like we have federal indictments coming down. And I just they're just not treating different industries the same.
Yeah. Well, this year, I'm hoping for a change. And as we talked about, pro crypto Congress, pro crypto president, and we have a more favorable environment. Amanda, great stuff. Appreciate your insights. Thank you so much for joining me.
Yeah, thank you for having me on.